Welcome to Focus on Business, a podcast show for photographers with me, your host, Jane Goodrich. I'm talking to successful photographers so you can learn from our experiences and have the business of your dreams. So join us and let's focus on business. So welcome to today's episode of Focus on Business. And I am so excited to have Shinu John on the show, who's, as you can see if you're watching this on YouTube, an amazing portrait photographer. And I've actually known him for a couple of years, so I'm really excited to have him on the show. So welcome to Focus on Business.
Thank you, Jane.
I just love your work, and I think you're so talented and just what you bring to the photography space. And just tell our viewers or listeners a little bit more about yourself.
So history-wise, I was born in India, grew up most of my life in India, but had been traveling for the past decade, different places, wherever work took me. Early years as an artist, I used to be a musician, and I broke my pinky finger in an accident. So I couldn't play the guitar anymore. For me, as an artist, I needed an artistic vent. And then I basically saw a camera in a pawn shop. It was a Fujifilm, a British camera. It's like 150 GS something. You could get it for like £100. And I was like, okay, let's just go for it. And tried it, tested it. Then, of course, after a while, because I was so eagerly learning, I used to explore a lot. I used to dive into YouTube videos and tutorials. Eventually, I grew out of it. And I was like, okay, a DSLR time now. So the first DSLR was a Canon 450D with an 1855, standard kit lens. Got it for exactly £99 in a shop. Yeah, tried, tested, pushed it to its extremes. And then you realize, okay, there's some limits, on this camera. And shall I push the limits? Do I need it? And I was like, okay. So sold the 450, got a 550. Then sold the 550, got a 70D. And then I found Nikon.
Oh, boo. No, I'm just kidding. I was like, oh, he's a Canon guy like me. No, I'm just kidding.
No, really, so basically the way that I envision my colors mentally, I don't know if it's wrong or right, is how you see colors, how you interpret them. And I found Fuji and Nikon to be, that's the best, and I found a deal in a Nikon. It was like a D750. I still have it. It's like an ancient camera. It's gone close to 600,000 shutter shots now.
Wow.
And it still survived. It's
wow.
Spot. The plastic is peeling off. Two of the buttons don't work. But because it was my first big step camera, I still have it as a backup camera.
Yeah.
Yeah. And over the years, my forte, what I would say, would be in Photoshop and lighting. Of course, being absolutely broke over the years, you learn to push your limitations in the equipment that you have. Early years of my career, I was usually running off an Amazon basic speed light, $20. And yeah, I just need one light. Do I need more? Maybe more. I was intrigued by the fact that somebody told me that you need more and more lights. More lights are great. But then I attended a masterclass by Chris Knight. It's a one-light masterclass. And
I took that.
Yeah, it's the holy grail.
Yes.
Everything that I was excusing myself for, it's like a blame game. Your portraits are not good and you blame your gear. And I see so many photographers doing that. Even veteran photographers. Just this morning itself, some guy I don't have this softbox which is worth $1,600, or this light by the same company which is $1,200. And I was like, dude, I use 120 bucks Kodak's umbrella softbox.
Yeah.
Sometimes even just with a speed light, and it's just you just need one.
Yeah.
You can modify. You can play around with more lights. It depends on your style.
Well, and I love that you say that, because it's starting out, you kind of have to work with what you got. Sometimes it's not necessarily the gear that needs improvement. It's knowing how to use the speed light. I remember I did a lot of in-home newborn photography and family photography. You're using a lot of ambient light. You can make a room look so different by turning on a side light and getting the reflection, opening the windows. It's learning how light works is not necessarily gear. I do think gear helps, and I do love my Canon 5D Mark IV. I am a Canon girl. But we're not going to get into the Nikon I think all the cameras are great, to be honest. I just grew up with it. For me, what's fascinating is you grew up on a Canon and then switched, whereas I was like, I'm not learning a whole new system. Stick with Canon. So I did start with a Canon Rebel too. So you had a full-time job. May I ask what the job was doing that required you to have this creative outlet?
The job was a boring one. It was in IT, as a software developer, a bit of banking. I was coding basically payment portals for different banks. And it was intense. It engages your mind, but it doesn't let your creativity out.
Right.
I know most geeks like me, they need that artistic vent. And myself, I identify as an artist. Like, I cannot function in a day without creating something.
Yeah.
It could be as simple as making food creatively, or editing a photo, or drawing something on the wall. But that needs to be put in some form or the other. And I think every single person who actually thinks of being a photographer has that small artistic inclination in them already. It's just about nurturing them.
I actually think everybody is an artist. It can be writing, it can be creative, it can be music, or even listening to music or singing. I sing. I don't sing well, but I think actually everyone has a creative bone in their body, and it's actually a really good outlet. I get so in the zone when I'm photographing, I can actually call it my meditation. Maybe not necessarily an 18-month-old kid running around. That's not my Zen meditation, but most of the time, if I'm photographing a newborn, I am in the zone. I can't break out of it, and I love it. But I will say, I do actually think software developers are creative. I think they're creating something. For example, with Pixella, we created it from scratch, and I know the developers love it. It was green screen. We're not using anything else. They're really, really talented coders, and I know that they love seeing it come to life. So I see a creativity that I didn't before in other industries, which I find fascinating. So right now, you just told me you are full-time photography since when?
September last year.
And how long were you photographing, like, let's say, part-time getting paid? What's the journey like for you from like, hey, I'm just going to play around with my Fuji camera, and to be like, hey, I could actually do this as a living?
I still do not know. I said, I first picked up the camera, I would say about 5-ish, 6-ish years ago. I started doing street photography because I love the challenge that it poses. As in, you cannot anticipate, you cannot plan, and you have to basically be a wizard fortune teller. You have to predict the scene, what's about to happen. Mm-hmm. And I think learning that skill allowed me as a photographer to anticipate what's happening in front of my face. It's a subconscious skill. You can't pin that skill down, but you know this is about to happen. And I say in most cases, it did happen, and it did help me as an artist. As in, I could connect with the audience better. Now, I get clients who are, after seeing the photos, they're like crying out of happiness. And I was like, I never seen myself this beautiful before, ever. And I was like, thank you.
Yeah, then you start crying. You start crying.
We try together. There's a joy of being a photographer, as in, like, you get to make something which is like eternal.
Yeah.
Be forever etched in history. And accepting the fact that you are an agent of change in someone's life, a positive change, you get to be the person who creates something that lasts forever in this universe.
Right.
And that's a feeling that basically as an artist, like, there's not many people get to have that feeling.
And I think that it's not talked about enough. You know, you can go into someone's home and your work is all over their home. You are part of their life. I'm not going to get morbid, but when my grandmother passed, what did we do? We looked through all the photographs. And I was lucky that I had captured her 90th birthday, and she gave me this look that she gives me, because we're both left-handed and I'm a little bit cheeky. So she always would give me this knowing look of, what are you going to do? But I like it, but I'm not sure what you're going to do. And just that photo that I took of her just reminds me of her every day, of that look. And I just think that one thing, as we'll get into the business side of it, but we have to really value what we are giving. It's not just, hey, I'm going to give you a digital image. Hey, I'm going to give you this. It's, we are bringing you lifetime memories or lifetime art for generations.
This is something that most amateur photographers don't see it as in like, they're like, it's just a photo. And it's like the moment you append the word just to anything you give, it just loses its value.
Well, I think that's also coming from a place where they're not necessarily valuing their work or photography in a sense of, if we understood the power of your artwork, you would probably have a little bit more self-confidence of how that can be. It's not just a snapshot. I mean, I love photography. I even love passport photos. I mean, just love all of it. Passport photo, even though it looks like a mugshot, that's in your passport for the rest of your life. You probably keep your old one, and it's like, all right, well, that was me at 4 years old looking like someone was killing me. But anyway, I could talk about that all day. So if you were to travel back in time from 5 years ago, would you change anything differently about your journey to becoming full-time?
If I went back in time and I saw my own self, I would just slap him on the face and I'd take this jump right now. Like, do not doubt yourself. It's an artist thing. Like, even now, today itself, as an artist, you do get the doubt that you're not good enough. Oh. But I get so many veteran photographers who are making like $500,000 a year. We had the skills that you have. Mm-hmm. We would have been elevated. It's a thing.
Yeah. Have you looked at your work? I mean, realistically, have you looked at your work?
Yeah, but it's about the amount. It's really hard to put value to something that you create because it's a baby. As in, like, this one behind me, that's almost 22 hours of editing on a single go. So it started on a Friday evening, came out of the room like Saturday night, no water, no food. I need this. I cannot allow this workflow to break because I have that artistic coming in, the ideas coming in, the perfectionism, everything. And people wouldn't believe this shot that was actually photographed on a bedside locker with some plywood on top of it. The wings is leftover from my cat kills. The fabric that she's wearing is the Hessian fabric that you used to clean cars. There's the spongy one. It's made from that. And the background was actually a bed sheet, literally a bed sheet, like hung up using clothes pegs.
It's absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to link your website in the show notes, but really take a look at his work because he's underselling it. Yeah, I think it's interesting that you said that. There's two things sort of in there. One, there's a hyperfocus. I remember when I first started, I really didn't understand. When I got in the flow, just go with it. Just really go with it, because now I have it and I'm very open with my husband and say, I'm in a flow, and he gets it. He's like, all right, I'm going to leave her alone. She'll be back when she finishes her editing. Or even the same thing with work. I'm plowing through emails, or I'm plowing through my website redesign, having to do a lot of different things. But definitely, I think, lean into the hyper-focus, but know the next day you're going to be toast, right? Just, you're going to be toast, and don't try and do anything, and don't beat yourself up over it. But the second part is where you talk about the photographers that mention, oh, wow, if I had your talent. It's interesting because I see a lot of talented photographers, but they aren't a successful business because there's two sides to it. There's the art side, and then there's the business side. And so, we'll get into that in terms of how you market your business. Shinu, if you had to move your business to America, what would be the first thing that you would want to do?
I would say, for me, now that I'm a few years in the business, you realize what formulas work for your business in terms of the clientele base. And I was like, I know this formula works because, one, it works everywhere. The biggest thing is networking. Your network is your net worth.
I learned that the other day, and I was like, why didn't I know this when I was 20? Your net worth is, it should be on a T-shirt.
It should be on a T-shirt. And like every photographer who is trying to put their work out there, of course, like social media is a platform, great to get the message across. But is that your audience? Be 100% sure. Is that your golden goose, your ideal client avatar? Are they even hanging out on Instagram? I realized with time, like if I were to sell art commissions like this, I know they would have to spend at least a few grand on a single image.
Right.
Who has the processing power for that? Are they even wasting this time on social media? No. Every single client that I've had so far who has spent a good few amounts on this, they don't even have time for social media. And the reason they got in touch with me was through a referral. Somebody who is, say, the recent client that I had, the guy that I knew, he was installing a fireplace in their house. The ceilings are like 20 foot high. And he was basically a single marble piece imported from Turkey to be installed in the house, which is, it's impossible to find a foot piece. And they paid close to 5 figures to get that installed. Basically, he's like an agent. He loves me as a friend. And he's like, I see your walls are empty. And they're like, we have photo shoots, but we couldn't find anything worth hanging. Or, like most photographers just give digitals. There's nothing to be hung, there's to hang about. And he's like, see his work. They were just like stared on. The owner, the moneymaker of the house, he wanted him to set up a meeting with me. I went there, did a conversation, chatted about the family, what's the bond between the family, which holds them together.
Right.
And eventually came to find out they actually met in a Lord of the Rings premiere.
Wow.
Both of them were like fans of Lord of the Rings. And I was like, let's make that a theme.
Right.
So I could dress you as hobbits, and we can make something like absolutely magical. But they're like, oh yeah, I've seen the fantasy work that you do. Basically make us into like gods and goddesses. I want it to be like ethereal, something that we can basically show off to our friends and family. Something that's unique. Okay, I can make that happen. And just have to like brainstorm and ideate.
I know, but that's the best part, right? That is the best part when someone's kind of have an idea. Okay, well, let me think on it. And they basically give you free reign, even though they poo-pooed the Lord of the Rings idea. But to say fantasy to you, you'd be, hell yeah. And I just love the fact that it was a fireplace dude. And, because one of the things that I see that's sort of underserved is the relationships of an interior designer. The interior designer is designing a whole room, or even like a realtor when they're buying a house, or real estate agent if you're in the UK is looking at something of like, oh, you could have a great family portrait on this wall, because they're looking at houses or construction people. Where are your clients getting advice from? So how are you marketing towards those people that are, oh, I can get a huge wall art frame for that gorgeous fireplace? And now what happens is, I'm going to call him Fireplace Dude. He knows that his clients are really happy with the fact that he referred you. And I know he's a mate, but he'll probably do the same thing again to the next fireplace that he thinks needs something over the mantle to help draw attention to his mantle. It's a collaboration almost.
Yes, exactly. So this is what I was talking in terms of like the network. Who you know and how you influence them. Do you have a good reputation? Do they trust you enough to refer you to their clients?
Yep.
It could be businesses, it could be individuals. But in terms of like clientele, there's not right or wrong. It's not always supposed to be wealthy clients who can pay.
No,
it's not that. It's about yourself as a marketer, as a business person. How much value do you give to your own work, and how much of a skill set do you have to show that same worth to your clientele?
Yeah, and the fact that you mentioned, do they trust you enough? But when that client is going to love and refer the fireplace guy a little bit more because he's added value, I'm going to refer both these people. And your fireplace guy looks great. And I always like to go into the relationship. What am I doing to help them? And it might not necessarily be elevating them with their clients, but you also want to make a good experience on somebody that's referred you, so they'll refer you again.
I did headshots for him. And like, he was like, dude, I'm too broke this month, but I need to get this done. I was like, yeah, just fine. Just give me $100.
Yeah.
But you owe me a favor. And he's like, yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
So I did some headshots. He had a small scar on it just beside his house, which he was really conscious about. And the previous photos that he took were obviously like, the photographer didn't have the skill to remove them. And when he asked to remove it explicitly, they're like, I don't modify faces. This is you.
Wow.
And many photographers tend to do that. They tend to be too invasive about their photos. I don't modify bodies. I don't modify faces. But when the client has let you know that they're visibly uncomfortable with this feature, why would you not do what the client asks?
Yeah, sometimes they're not going to like the photos otherwise. Also, maybe you didn't position them in the right way to not necessarily show the scar. I have one client who has a very lazy eye. Every shot, like a family shoot, headshot he came back for, and I don't do it, obviously, but I position him so it's not obvious. And I pick the photos that the lazy eye is the most wide open. Quite difficult to open his eyeball, but he likes that. I know it's a flaw, but I don't want to bring attention to the flaw.
Yeah.
You're reminding me of headshots for another business, or like I've gone and photographed some event for them, which I hate event photography, but I'll do it. And then it comes back symbiotically where, they refer me to all of their twin babies. Like, I'm like, give me your babies. Now you're full time. Is it seasonal? Do you have a seasonality to it, or have you found that yet since it's just been since September?
I tend to spread that a lot. If somebody's specializing, like family portraits only, you have the peak season before Christmas. You have the peak season Halloween. You have the peak season in summer. That's when you're most busy. As the rest of the year, it may be like a dwindling income. So I would recommend people at least to have three genres that spread across the year. For the commercial side, I focus on business branding and headshots. So headshots are like crazy early the year because everybody's hiring, everybody's looking for a job. So in the months that I'm not taking, art commissions, family stuff, I have headshots. Business branding stuff.
Did I tell you that? No, I'm just kidding. That's exactly what I do.
It's handy. And then business branding, like when people pay the taxes and they get a tax back.
Or they didn't get their bonus. They didn't get the bonus they wanted, so they're going to switch job. They need a LinkedIn picture. Or it's a New Year's resolution to find a new job. Or dating photos. Like, I am going to go on a date,
I get that. Now that I'm here in my snazzy suit, why not take a Tinder photo?
Right.
Why not? Give me the smoldering sexy look,
I did one photo shoot, and the guy, if I don't smile, I look like a serial killer. Great. And you have to make me smile. Awkward. So there's me trying to make him smile. When he smiled, his gorgeous smile. And he was like, I'm getting some great dates from your photos. Yeah, but then they're going to see you and you're going to have serial killer face when you're not smiling. So what are you going to do? I should follow up on him, see if he had any more success. But I like that tip of spreading it out. For me, newborns is my de-seasonal. Newborns are born year-round. Yes, there's a couple of peak seasons, but really not that much. And then I have family that definitely do in the fall. I have so many repeat clients. I am not photographing you in brown leaves anymore. We're going to do summer or we're going to do spring. Your kids are old enough. If it goes on the holiday card, they're not going to have changed by that. And then I do headshots, and I have a whole separate business website for it because I need money in January and February. And I like it. It's fun. It's easy, especially in comparison to chasing toddlers and newborns. But
totally. I had to separate the business part. Everything commercial, I had to make a separate website, just not have it clash with the main artsy stuff. It's like you come to a website and then, okay, there's fine artwork. There's people who look like gods, and there's a shirt in a shirt and a suit. It just doesn't go together,
Well, and I think what you do is when you're first starting out, I can add it to my existing website. Well, one, I recommend making sure that your existing website is SEO'd, is definitely targeting your ideal client. You can put it on there. What I did, and it seemed to work. I'm not saying that it won't work for everybody, but I targeted my client base. I have a huge client base for families and newborns of like, hey, I'm getting into the headshots. Send an email in January. And then I realized I'm actually getting a lot of business. And I realized in Google Ads, the keywords, it's not competitive at all. Okay, so I'm going to do local Westchester headshot photography. That's what I'm going to do. Also, if I'm busy, I can have an associate photographer, basically, that I know that will shoot the same. Because at this point, you sort of are like, how am I going to expand? I'm the service, I'm the product, so how can you make it a little bit easier? And it ranks higher in Google because you have the name headshot photography in the website. So I agree. But you have to make sure that your ducks are in a row with the first website before separating it, I think. For the fine art portrait photography, would you find that you have any red flags of like, all right, this person isn't going to be for me?
When somebody reaches out, actually looking at the work and not just scouring the internet for a portrait photographer, and I'm just one of the 50 they're reaching out to, they've seen my work, they have likely been following my work for a while, never had the courage to ask about a session, but they were thinking about it. And over the years, over the months, you see new work being posted and they imagine themselves to be, it's like a desire to be in front of the camera with me. Then I know that the conversation completely sways away from price. And it's all about the excitement.
Yes.
What they would get, how the life would be transformed. Would they get something that they never owned before and nobody else would ever own, something like that.
Right.
That's the excitement part. So when people lead with prices, that's the first concern. That's like a big red flag to me. Yeah. Because I know it's fine to be price conscious. They anticipate it to be expensive, but they don't anticipate it to be like in 4 figures. No. Because they're used to people who do it for like $100. I like, unfortunately, that won't even get you one image from me. Especially not the fine art stuff. And they're like, oh, yeah, I would need to save up, And it's just fine. Yeah, that's fine.
My older sister's a photographer. Now she's a teacher, but she fell in love with this, I don't know, this woman did like doll face, fine art portraits, and she followed her for years. And then I think she treated herself. I mean, she was saving up. She was following and saving up, but she was cost conscious. I love this, and I want this on a wall of me dressed up by it. I'll have to find the photo because it's actually, the woman's amazing. But I saw something the other day, and I actually think it's really good to say, is you actually don't know who's following you and who is actually saving up for you. So just keep posting. And I remember this one woman, I kind of started crying after I reached out. For some reason, I had posted 3 or 4 twin shoots that I'd done. I'm a twin, so I love doing twin shoots. And it was a repeat client, and she was like, oh, I can tell you now, we're having twins, but I was really struggling and there was some medical complications. I would just go and stare at your Instagram account and I am going to get that shoot with my babies with her. Oh my gosh, so she's manifesting it and I'm going to cry. So you don't realize the amount of art impact that you can have just even posting on Instagram or something like that. You might not necessarily get clients reaching out via Instagram, but they are watching. So what is the best piece of advice, apart from having the one light class, what's the best piece of business advice you got given? And yes, it was from me. No, I'm just kidding. No, it wasn't.
The best business advice, it would be wiser to specialize early.
Mm-hmm.
Identify the things that actually excite you as an artist to create, and then learn the skills to sell that.
Yeah.
And price it higher. Because once you're priced at the bottom bracket, it's easier to get gigs, but it's impossible to get out of. And every time you increase even a tiny bit of money, you get cancellations. And every time you increase, you get more cancellations. So it's better to lose clients just once rather than 9 times in 3 years.
Well, and that's one of the things that I say is as you figure out your prices early on, we do have a calculator on Pixello, is like figure out how much you need to earn. Because ours is like very complicated. We did a ton of studies from it. So it has the average costs of running a business, the average time it takes to photograph a wedding, edit a wedding, run and edit a wedding business. So I don't care if you make $15 an hour from this when you're first starting out. Because you're like, oh, I shouldn't really be charging. You are giving your time, your talent. You still should be making minimum wage. At the baseline, let's get you set. And then you can raise your prices. Far too often I see people just picking numbers out of the air to see. And it's like, just look at your costs. How much do you need to make? Okay, so say you were a software engineer. Likely you're trying to replace that income. Likely it's high to replace that income at first. And so you're going to have to lead up to it. You're not going to get from losing 20K a year to then clearing 100K a year. You have to step it. And that's why I do actually encourage people while they're building their business, building their awareness, building their systems, building in place to actually do keep your day job. You should have some backup in place and maybe 6 months in savings if you are going to go. But it takes time, regardless of how much money you spend on ads and how much money you spend on investment and mentorship. it's going to take time. And what happens is if it's going slower than you think, and I think in this industry or in this time, we expect immediate gratification. I'll just say, I just launched a podcast. I'm like, why isn't it taking off? Why do I have 10,000 downloads an episode? It takes time, Jane, and I have to keep reminding myself that. And maybe I have to do some advertising, maybe I have to do some other things, but I go back into that mindset. But if I'd quit my day job just to start a podcast, and I would just be in a dark hole, but I have other things that are going on. So that's one thing that I recommend. And I love the fact that you said, identify the things that make you happy and inspired right away. I did that. And then unfortunately, social media comes along and I'm inundated with everybody else's artwork and everybody, and you kind of follow the trends a little bit. And I did. And I would say 2017, 2018, I was a little bit in a dark place of changing my style. And I remember Anna Brandt had a conference. She had Ann Geddes. And if you don't know who Ann Geddes is, you're crazy. She's the one that put all the babies in flower pots, and she's absolutely amazing. There was a slideshow of her work, and there was a bunch of newborn photographers. And there was one where it's not typical newborn photography at the moment. And the whole audience gasped as if like, oh, wow, she shot up the nose, basically what they call it. I'm like, it's Ann Geddes. Are you kidding me? You're like criticizing Ann Geddes? So I walked away from there being like, I don't care. I'm going to go back to what I like. I like simple, newborn, white background, white. Like I just like clean. I'm going to go back to it. And that made me so happy. And I was very strict about it. Redid my website. I was like, I am not following the crowd. I'm just going to do what makes me happy and why people come to me. Tell me about a funny shoot when you think, did that really happen on the shoot? Or has there been any funny experiences that you're like, oh gosh, what happened there?
So I let my clients be free. My clients are most happy when, like, basically I let them what they always wanted. There's a child in everyone.
Right.
And it's like, once you allow the child to run, they may be futile, but every adult loves that, where they won't be judged for stupid stuff they do. Some could be like laughing, some could be giggling. They know as an adult, you're supposed to laugh, not too loud, be ladylike when you're giggling, things like this. And like, just let it be. And this once I remember almost like 2 years ago when I just moved to Ireland, and it was like early November, and there was a storm coming in. Irish storms are not as bad as hurricanes, but it was good enough. It was like an orange zone area. So like, they're like, stay indoors. Things may be flying outside, just stay indoors. And one of my old clients, she just calls me, Johnny boy, I'm like, what? We're shooting right now. I'm like, where? In this forest. Okay. So do I just show up with everything? And she's like, yeah, okay. And because it was windy, she wanted like a boudoir shoot outside. And she's like, this one here, let's pull it off. And I was like, okay. So we were doing the photo shoot, and the wind got really windy, and her dress flew off. And
it was a boudoir shoot, I mean.
So this happened. Now what do we do? And I was like, the best I can do is I can lend you a jacket. And we walked back.
So the dress actually flew off, like where she couldn't get it?
Yeah, it just flew off in the wind. So she was just in the innerwear. And like, we walked almost like 2 kilometers. Luckily, it was like at the back of a forest. So the last 200 meters was on the road. But it was fun. She was like so happy that she got to pull off something like this outdoors. And
that's amazing.
For a confidence booster, she totally changed after like 2-3 photo shoots with me. She was really conscious about her stretch marks, or like after having a baby. And they're like a C-section, so there's a small scar. And she was working out. She had a 6-pack. And I was like, have you even seen your physique? You literally look like a goddess. And she like, now I have this scar. So she was really conscious about it. But once you pull off really, like a fitness come boudoir with the potential side of it, she's like, damn. Like, I'm awesome. Yes, you are awesome.
It's interesting. Yeah, I like that. And I like the fact that you're like empowering people to like feel better about themselves, not just taking a photograph. or a portrait. It's like, you know what? I want them to feel better about themselves.
It's all about the personality, as in like many photographers, I wouldn't say most, but many photographers tend to just take mugshots. As in like they tell the person, pose and I'll take a photo here. But like, it's not a connection. It's not who they really are.
No.
They're not their true selves unless you let them be. And
Yeah.
that's a skill. That's a skill which needs to be cracked. You know, it takes time
So
to
I-
develop that. Yeah.
So I think that's it. No. I think that it's interesting that you can do that with adults. I find it so easy to do with children. And sometimes I'll do it with, like, I call them grown-ups. But with kids, they are so in themselves and they are so raw. They are there. They are present. They are, like, in the moment. That's why I can't do mini sessions, is because I need time to figure out what that kid is like. Even though I used to have a questionnaire where the parents were like, what's your kid like? Who's the shy one? And this completely different on the shoot with me. The shy one isn't shy and the outgoing one is a little more cautious. And so it's fascinating to me of how you can actually capture that personality. There's one client that, it's funny, now I see her daughter, and I photographed them since they were newborns. It makes me feel old that now they're like 14, 15. And there was a stage where she was the typical 2-3-year-old. And she was done at the end of the shoot. And she gave me this death stare. It's actually one of my favorite photos, a death stare. And I made it black and white. And the mom, she said, that is my favorite photo because that is her. And she basically put it on a phone background because she won her desktop. And then the other two could still go, but she was like, I'm done. And then the next year, she kind of gave me a similar look, but it didn't look as good because of the clothing was too springing and it wasn't as moody. And the funny thing about it is we tried to recreate it as she grew up, but we couldn't because she started laughing. And now she came up to me the other day and she was like, hi, Jane, how are you? And I was like, oh, I want my moody 3-year-old. Where's that? But she's framed it 16 by 20. Wow, that's really hysterical that you'd frame that moody 2-year-old. But she's like, no, that was my life. Okay. All right, let's get to gear. You talked about Nikon and talked about Amazon $20 lighting, but what do you shoot with now? And what is your go-to camera lighting setup?
Right now, I just recently got a Nikon Z8. Like, I was thinking of switching to mirrorless for a long while. And yeah, I found an A-listed item, like shown returned where people tested out for like a used shutter count of 30, 40. It can't be put back into the box. And I was like, yeah, I'll take it. So I got one really good deal. And I was like, okay, like I'll keep the D750 as a backup, worst case scenario. But I'll definitely upgrade to mirrorless. And I did contemplate upgrading to like a Sony or like a Canon. But then just because I had invested so much in like Nikon lenses anyway.
Yeah.
Just to stay with Nikon.
So mirrorless, I mean, I'm going to be like the last holdout. I want a mirrorless so bad, but I am holding out. I am holding out. Sell me on a mirrorless, or don't sell me on a mirrorless, actually.
I sell you on a mirrorless. So one, it's faster. Second, it's faster. Third, it has an auto eye focus thing. So like when I do the photo shoots, I would usually have the camera on a tripod and I would converse with the client, just standing just behind the camera. So I like to make eye contact when I'm talking to people. So I know the camera is focusing on the eye. Automatically,
wow.
without even me looking at it. So for me, it's like, I'm talking like this and the camera's like, I don't
Yeah.
do the viewfinder.
Yeah.
And I just keep on snapping away. And the Z8 is like, has been a phenomenal camera. As like, I might have taken like 8,000 shots with it. And I think in total, 5 of them might be out of focus in those.
It's interesting that for me, the auto eye focus would actually be so helpful because you're right. Like you step out, and I'm really picky about the eyes being in sharp focus. The lighter does help too because as you get older and you have been doing this a while, you get arthritis in your hands. So I think that would help. But does the Canon have that? Does Canon have auto eye focus?
Yeah, all the mirrorless have it. It's
listening to me, Andrew.
I've used the R5. I used the R6 today, and it's pretty much the same. Like for me, just because of like I have like tiny hands, so for me the claw grip of the Nikon worked better for me.
Right.
So these were fine, but I despise Sony's from the bottom of my heart. As like, I find the colors too plastic,
Yeah.
too saturated. Like, it's good for video, but then Nikon Z8 also did a firmware update where you can basically record raw video.
Wow.
Or in 8K, you can have like a pixel shift. So for product photos, you can have 8 photos with like super sharp like depth of field, and it can combine all of them together. And I just did like a jewelry shoot for a jeweler who sells emeralds. So with the CPL filter, it omits the glare from glass. But emeralds, because they have internal reflection, they do have a subtle lines. And I was like, Jesus, this is an impossible task. Because you just find that perfect shot which doesn't have any reflection inside.
Right.
So took 9 shots, the camera combined them together. Absolutely clear gem. Absolutely clear gem. Like, that's a big gift from heaven. The drawback is like, just file sizes are ginormous. It's like a 45 megapixel camera.
I don't understand this. This is what's like kind of interesting. With Pixella, what we're seeing is people are uploading these file sizes that are huge. And then the clients are like, I can't save that. Right. So say you did an engagement shoot, and when you start out, you over deliver. But they're like, I can't download it. I don't have storage. And then you're expecting them to pay for the storage of these photos for the rest of their life because they have to upgrade the Google photo storage to actually accept it. Unless you're printing a billboard, you don't need it. You need maybe 10 max.
Max. Yeah.
I just think that that's one thing that needs educating on is the file size. I am a little bit of a cropper, so I do think that file size helps because it helps when I crop. But you don't deliver that to the client if you do digital.
Mine would be like 3,000 pixels, 2,000 pixels.
Yeah.
That's what most people need. Won't talk about like an MB or 2.5 at most.
Yeah. It's funny because people are like, oh, and you see all these preset guides and it's like export full. And you're like, the clients are going to kill you. And it's going to take you longer to upload because you don't have Wi-Fi that's stable. And your computers are going to die if you save the finals. Okay. I'm going to put it in the show notes, but tell our audience where they can find you and admire all of your work.
For the art portraits, the website that I have would be shinujohn.com. That's SHINUJOHN.com. On Instagram, I with like Shinu John _ because my main account was suspended. So I had to start a new one. So it's like Shinu John _ And I also like with Instagram, just like separate all my different genres that I do. So I have one called Headshot Photographer in Dublin.
Nice.
That only for headshot for SEO.
Yep.
Then there's Pet Portraits in Dublin, Pet Photographer in Dublin, or something of that sort. Like, I'm still yet to update that Instagram handle. Yeah, and on Facebook with like Shinu John Photography. I don't post much to Facebook. It's just like not my target audience. So I focus on the website and Instagram mostly.
Well, Facebook for me, it is because I started in 2010 and really all we had was your website, email, relationships, and Facebook page. And you actually did get some traction. Now you don't get traction on it. I don't think I've updated my Facebook page in like 5 years. I don't know.
Unless you pay for it, Meta push you at all anymore.
This works a little bit for some photographers is to create, a VIP group on Facebook. But,
it's a lot of admin engagement. Yeah.
It does require a lot of admin engagement, but you could actually do it. One successful photographer that I know that does it really well, she has, I think, a hair and makeup artist that also help and a bra fitting lady. So they all sort of collaborate on the actual shoot itself. So the photographer, the hair and makeup artist, and the stylist for the shoot to get the right outfits. And so I think that takes the pressure off the admin of that. So, but yeah, other than that, you're right. I think it's really the SEO and the relationships and Instagram. But this has been absolutely amazing. I really, really appreciate just the time. I love watching your journey. I really do. I do. So
it's been through the ups and downs, like I made mistakes in terms of like decision making and you learn from them. And this is a process which everybody has to go through. As like, if you make mistakes early, you learn early.
Right.
Most people hold it off. Oh, I don't want to take this risk. But business is all about risk.
Business is risky.
100%. But like you said, like when you quit the job, you shit bricks, but you have the freedom. You don't have to get up and answer to someone's call. If today I decide, oh, I don't want to work, I can just sit home, drink some cold coffee, sit in the sun, make my own sandwich. I can.
You can. And also, you have to set your own boundaries of when you work and not at the client's beck and call. Otherwise, you do end up with a boss. And also, say you worked really hard for 22 hours non-stop, you have the freedom to not go into the work the next day, whether you're like this zombie.
I was totally passed out for I literally hibernating for the next 1.5 days.
Yeah.
And then I came back and I was like, okay, there is still something yet to go. I spent 3 more hours onto it. And the first thing that I did was like, I need to print it. So I'm like, I have like a big printer at home. So I printed like A2 size one. And I was like, oh, this is like absolutely gorgeous. What have I created? Like, I was really just staring at it for a while.
Yeah.
And after a while, when I posted it, and obviously this took a lot of attention. Like, there were like 3 galleries in London that I used to work with. And they're like, we might be able to send this copy. And then an art curator in Germany, like he reached out and he's like, I shared this work with a client of mine and they're wondering, can they have an exclusive copy of this? And I was like, but it's already online, I can't make it exclusive anymore. And then how about getting commissions for this? I was like, okay. So I made a series of these, like I'm like working on image 5 now.
Okay.
5 of 7. So like they're not on the internet at all,
Yeah, no, you have to be careful of that. We can chat about that. But yeah, once you become like more of a commission photographer, you have to make sure that is exclusive. And I think you should be having gallery show your work and getting paid for those amazing images, because
getting the name out there, it just takes time to build up the reputation in the market.
Yeah.
Because obviously you are competing against other artists who are just as pioneers in their work. But managing a business along with being an artist, that's the hard part. Because you need both skills, which don't overlap each other at all.
No.
At all.
I find that sometimes I'm in a creative day. So I'm like, fine, I'm in a creative day. And then sometimes I'm in a business day. And that's fine. But sometimes, it's like, Jane, you've had way too many creative days. Let's focus on your business, literally. So
that's the thing. So for me, like everything that is bulk or volume-based work, where I don't know how to want to sit and create, I just outsource it.
Yeah.
So it's a few extra bucks from my own pocket, but at least I get back the time. Time is money.
Time is money. And yes, and outsourcing like the things that you really hate to do is key, or that you're not good at. For example, I've always outsourced my website design because I'm not good at it. I'll overthink that till the death comes home. And I need to be shooting. I need to be networking. I need to be getting more clients versus what SEO is, what keyword am I ranking for? Because I also like it, so I can go down a rabbit hole of SEO. So I have to take a step back sometimes. Sometimes I'll go down that rabbit hole. Anyway, this has been amazing, Shinu, and I really, really appreciate it. And I can't thank you enough. This is
a pleasure, Jane. It's great to share, like maybe somebody gets inspired by my journey and, maybe they're in the same shoes that I was in, and they're like waiting for the motivation to just quit the day job and become an amazing artist. You never know what life you lead unless you take this risk.
Yep. I agree. Thank you so much.